Well, with us now in the studio, three people with a close connection with this evening's topic. Vangaya Mufara lost a baby in 2020. Nicola Welsh lost her baby in 2009 and now runs the charity Held in Our Hearts. And Jackie Lambert is the Scotland Director of the Royal College of Midwives. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening. Nicola, you run a support charity, but you have personal experience of this, don't you? Because your son, Theo, died in 2009.
He did, yeah. We had him for 3 weeks. He never came home. He spent his time in the intensive care in Edinburgh. We got great care. We had lots of love and compassion around us, but his condition sadly came to a point where we had to decide to switch his machine off, which is the most devastating experience I will ever face for me and my husband. But I got to hold him as he died. And I think at that point your life changes. I was a teacher before and quite quickly realised that life wasn't going to return to what it was. I had to learn a new normal, and part of my new normal is living with him, I guess, through the charity and the care and compassion that we provide now to families.
Vangaya, you also lost one of your baby twins in 2020, not that long ago. I mean, it must have just been so traumatic.
It was, my Rylan had a heart condition and I only got to find out at 20 weeks. And at 27 weeks, I was told that he was going to undergo surgery by the medical experts. So I had a future planned for him. And I had the twins at 37 weeks. 19 days down the line, he had a heart attack and it was just a sudden death. So yes, I was not expecting it and it was quite a shock and I didn't know how to deal with it at that point in time.
That must have been so shocking.
It was.
Heather, who is from your charity in the report, said you're grieving the loss of a baby, you're also grieving the loss of imagined future. That must be so difficult to deal with.
Yeah, it goes against the natural order of life. When we deliver a baby and bring a baby into the world, it's about the future. And I think it's one of our most primal instincts is to protect our young. And so when a baby dies, it's the shattering of all that was to be. And there is no recovery from that. It's with you all the time because they should be here. And it was the life that you wished for them.
You feel that as well? You'd planned a future?
Yes, I looked forward to walking with them down the street, holding their hands. I looked forward to conversations and just looking at them playing together. And this was just cut within minutes.
Yeah.
Within minutes.
Yeah, and Jackie, we're talking about miscarriage, stillbirth and infant death this evening. It's so traumatising for mums, but for dads as well. We can't, forget to talk about dads. Absolutely. And the whole profound effect on the whole family.
Yeah, because this is, as Nicola and Vangaya said, it's part of their whole story. It's part of their dreams. It's part of their lives. And there's no part of the family that isn't affected by that or impacted by that. And it's not, as Nicola says, it doesn't stop. It just it's something that becomes part of your story, and there's nobody that's not impacted. It's because it's part of your life.
Yeah. And Nicola, the hospital to home scheme is part of what your charity Held in Our Hearts does. What was the motivation for that? What does it do?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the motivation came from my own experience. I came home and was expecting to have a baby to bring up, and I had a 2-year-old at the time, and I found myself just wandering around, just lost. Nobody told me where to go or what to do to help with my grief, and I did get given a helpline card for a charity at the time, but it was faceless, and I phoned them 3 times, and the 3rd time I just simply said, will I ever be happy again? And I think that really stayed with me was this, I had to do a lot of the hard work, and yet I couldn't organise myself or think clearly. So the hospital to home is trying to take away the hard work for the families. It's, I suppose, a desire for the future is that families, when the devastation happens, are contacted and somebody reaches in. It's this reaching in rather than them having to reach out, that the hospital to home, it bridges the gap between the transfer from hospital to to home care. So the community care, the day-to-day, like how are you day-to-day? So they provide 6 to 8 visits to the family, and they go and sit with the family, the extended family, other siblings, and can help with things like returning to work or funeral arrangements or review processes and challenges that they're facing as a family, and set a good foundation for the future.
And help guide them through, help them navigate this hellishly difficult time.
Yeah, you don't know how to do it. I've never done
Yeah.
this before. It's not normal to try and navigate the loss of a baby.
Absolutely. And Vangai, what kind of support did you get?
When Rylan passed, by that time I was being supported by Ama Birth Companion. And when he passed on, the first people that I could think of was Ama Birth Companion. So I called my birth companion, and she was the first person who got to the hospital. And, it's a roller coaster of emotions. You don't know what to do. Even when you're being asked what you want, you don't even know what you want. But Ama was there to support me, and they sort of like took over everything in terms of planning the funeral. They do support postnatal companions, so they were there. They walked with me throughout the whole journey, from the time when we left the baby at the hospital to the time when we then had an opportunity to bury the baby.
That must have been so comforting for you.
It was comforting. It's good to have someone by your side, especially during that difficult time. The worst thing was it was also during COVID, so I could not have friends or family around me. So the only people who were allowed to be with me at that point in time was Ama. So they had to make sure that they do home visits on twice or 3 times in a week to come and check on me, to just make sure that I'm okay, I'm eating well, and I'm looking after the other twin.
Jackie, as a midwife, do you get trained in how to help women at this time? Do you learn how to counsel them? And do you have time to do that when wards are so incredibly busy at the moment?
So it's always something that's a priority. Do you know, the relationship for a midwife is you're part of a huge big life event, and it's an overwhelming life event. And what I know is that there's a real push to make sure that, yesterday we were just hearing about how important it is to make sure that midwife's freed up to make sure she can prioritise that woman's needs and that family's needs at that time. And things have changed, they're moving on, and we learn because charities like Nicola's and, the generosity of women who have these experiences to share, so that midwives learn and all healthcare professionals are understanding what works, what words that with the best of intentions might have been really not the right words, not the right things to say. And the experts in that, unfortunately, are the women who have experienced this, and their generosity to share so that we can learn, and we can all, because learning doesn't end, and we're very lucky to have the generosity of people like yourselves so that we can do that.
Because you both now volunteer to help women who've been through some similar things. You now have trained as a volunteer, and you're involved in the charity. I think that's so interesting that's your reaction. So peer support's very important.
Yeah, I'm currently a doula. And at the moment, I'm supporting moms as a postnatal companion with Ama, but I'm also volunteering as a trustee with Ama as well. So sometimes it is that help that takes you to also to want to get involved, and to also want someone else not to go through the same experiences that you've gone through. Or if they've gone through those experiences, you just want someone to at least be in a better position than you were at the point when you lost your own child.
That's such a generous way of thinking, and that was your response as well, wasn't it, Nicola?
Yeah, I think being with somebody else who's had that lived experience gives you a little hope, because you can't see how you're going to recover or move forward, but watching somebody else and seeing that they're just a little bit further ahead of you does give you the hope that you so desperately need.
Yeah, because I think one of the women in the report was that Heather said we're part of this club that no one wants to be in. Yeah. Jackie, we also heard Louise in the report talking about campaigning for specialist baby loss units. That must be so difficult. What she went through, it really resonated, didn't it? I mean, what an awful experience. So where are we with that? And are we going to have specialist units, do you think? I mean, some hospitals have them.
And again, it's really important that women and their family can be cared for in a space where it's a space that's close enough to obviously make sure there's care provided, but away from that labour ward, away from those other women's experience, and where they can be in that privacy of the space that they need at that time. We know that all health boards in Scotland want to move towards this. New hospitals being built, it's absolutely the case. The challenge is when you've got older hospitals and you're trying to make something right that might not have been built right in the first place. And, you know, but it's really important that this is resourced, because it has to be a priority. Having a separate unit would, you know, what you want to get is that balance so that you've got the right care available.
Close enough to the services,
but absolutely removed separate entrances, separate ways in, a way that you are coming into that and you're coming into the space where you're getting what you need there and not being disturbed by other people's life events going on.
You know, I think it's great that we're talking about all this tonight. Do you think there is a taboo about baby loss? Okay.
Well, in my culture, people sort of like tend to not talk about it. So when you try to talk about it, people don't know how to help you. So it's tough to have conversations like that. But as a mom, you want to remember your child. You want to keep their memories alive.
You want to talk about him.
You want people to acknowledge that he existed. And that does not happen most of the time. And sometimes you can see that you're making conversations difficult for other people.
Because I think sometimes people don't know what to say. They don't know what to say, so they don't say anything, Nicola. And has that been your experience?
Yeah, and I think the taboo comes from fear. It's everybody's worst fear, isn't it? If you're a parent or not, it's like I said, it goes against the natural order. So I think it's the fear that silences us all. And what we hear all the time is it's better to say something than nothing. And sometimes it is just saying, like, I don't know what to say. I can't imagine how this feels for you, or I can't imagine what you've been through, but I'm always here to hear about your baby, and I'll always remember them. And it's so important to keep talking.
Well, thank you all so much for coming on the programme to talk about this. It's so important that we do discuss it. Thank you for your time.